Let's move on for now. Let's get back to the big story. Well, the boost coming for the steel industry. The government has rolled back most of the export duties on steel products, as well as stainless steel. Well, to understand that in better detail, we are joined by Mr. Jha, the MD of JSPL, as well as Mr. Amit Dixit, the analyst at ICICI Securities. Morning, Mr. Jha and Amit. Thanks so much for joining in. Well, Mr. Jha, let's come across to you first. This is going to provide another avenue in terms of exports. But on pricing, tell us first, what is the difference between domestic and export prices? And post these measures that have been levied in, any scope of pushing up prices for you?
Good morning, and thank you for that question. Before I answer that question, I must thank the government. And government in its wisdom had put in these duties also to save the domestic industry. It has also seen what has happened to the steel players in the meantime and external markets. And therefore, the government in its wisdom has taken this step, which we welcome. The 15% levy that was there, it was only causing a bit of a disruption for the domestic industry, despite having a very strong domestic demand. The difference was coming from the fact that you don't always have the demand for all the things that you produce. And as steel producers, often you need a safety valve to export. India, on the whole, is still the most growing economy amongst the large economies in the world. And therefore, it has a demand that is to be satisfied domestically. But if you don't have a safety valve, then things can go out of control. And I think that was recognized, and rightly, the duties have been rolled back. So it is not so much a question of difference between domestic and export, as much as it is to make sure that the inventories do not build up in the country.
Get that point, sir. But from a stock market perspective, we understand that this is a great move for the industry. It's a step in the right direction. But the stock market wants to know what is the difference between pricing. So could you help us out with that?
I understand the question that you are asking, but I'm not answering the question in the form of what is the number that goes up as a result of this. I'll tell you that there are two effects which are coming in. It is not just that the prices will go up. Prices will have to go up in the proportion that the costs go up. And the costs will go up because of the export that has been allowed without any duties on 58% iron ore, and also it has been reduced above 58% Fe in the iron ore. Yeah. As a result, what is going to happen is that this is going to be a question of the gap between price and cost. It is not so much about the cost or about the price. So how domestic players are able to manage this gap is going to be the determinant for the stock market, and not only the price or only the cost.
Okay. Amit Dixit, who is the analyst at ICICI Securities, also tracks the space very closely, is joining in. Amit, what is your view on the stocks, especially the steel stocks? Do you see any major impact because of this news flow?
Yeah, hi, good morning, Nigel and Sonia. So what we believe is that, first of all, you have to see two things in context. The first one is that the global steel environment, neither in terms of price or in terms of consumption, is like May 22. I mean, if you look at the consumption estimates, they have been reduced almost by 3 to 5% by World Steel Association. If you look at the global prices, I mean, throughout, whatever export price you might look at, they are down 40%. So clearly the propensity to export now would be basically at a diminishing margins. And the only thing that works is essentially capacity utilization. So capacity utilization can go up. As Mr. Jha mentioned, I agree that the exports are always a relief for. So they always help you to balance your sales. Having said that, what I see that there is a very limited scope for flat steel prices going up, because we are already at 11 to 12% premium to landed cost of imports. And in that context, I see things getting difficult. I mean, the prices going up would be challenging at this stage. Okay. Having said that, there are a couple of areas that one can look at. For instance, stainless steel. So stainless steel exports, I think it gives a big shot in the arm for a company like Jindal Stainless. In terms of if you look the long value chain, so pellet duties have been rolled back. So pellet prices on Saturday itself were up 10 to 12% in Odisha. And I think that would help some of the DRI IF based players like Sham Metallics. And of course, since iron ore prices look to have bottomed out, that could benefit a company like NMDC.
Okay.
So these are the three key stocks that we see would benefit.
Just one thing. I mean, stocks across the board, except as Amit also said, except Jindal Stainless, nothing else. Stocks are down to flat.
Down.
Yeah.
Right? I expected, you know, a lot of it was perhaps because this was widely expected for a long time, but maybe it was a lot of it was in the price. But across the board, I mean, is it surprising or not
No,
really?
it's not surprising at all, Prashant. You know, the clear-cut beneficiaries were JPIL because they export pellets, NMDC and Jindal Stainless. For the steel players, it's a step in the right direction, but you can't export anyways, right? You're not going to make any money out there. So because of that, it's not really surprising. The sell-on news has played out on some of these stocks. But let's get to Mr. Jha. Mr. Jha, you're being pretty evasive, but let's try to get a couple of details out of you. Will you export now? Post this pullback of this 15%, it's providing an avenue, but will you export?
We have already been exporting.
Yes, but you were, Mr. Jha, let me come in over there. Mr. Jha, a few quarters ago, you were exporting 23 to 28% of your total produce. Is that correct? Now that number has come down to the low teens. So do you see that number go back up? Go ahead.
This is what I said while you, I'm sorry I talked over you. I did say that your real question is not whether we export, but whether we increase our exports. Now, there were certain areas where we were unable to export, but there were many other areas where there were no duties, and those areas will remain unaffected. The areas that will get affected will be the normal quality plates or wire rods, etc. So these are the things that definitely, when there is an opportunity abroad, where there are customers who have been our long-term customers in the past, and we were not able to supply because of this duty, we will definitely export back to them. And those conversations are already on.
Okay. Mr. Jha, can you tell us a little bit how the demand situation is panning out, especially in the Indian markets, given that a lot of industries have now picked up? And I also ask you because you had guided for your second half volumes to be around 4 million tons. Would you stick to that? Would you change your guidance? First on the demand front though?
No, so from the demand front, there is still not that much of an uptick that came, that was expected immediately after the festive season. And one of the major reasons has been the NGT ban on construction in the north. I think as soon as this one gets to the normal stage, then because the overall demand is still looking positive, the demand growth that we were expecting should also happen. So that's what is our expectation on the demand side. As far as our guidance is concerned, we don't change our guidance every week.
Okay. No, we wanted to know whether you'll up the guidance since you have that export avenue, but you're saying you don't change it. So we'll stick to that 4 million tons at least. I recall that you had put the caveat in there that you'll at least do 4 million tons for the second half of the year. And we normally play the tapes when you come the previous time as well. So final question, need to ask you and clarify on these reports. Some on the street or some reports indicate that JSPL is probably looking at buying out Vedanta Steel Unit. That's the erstwhile Electro Steel. Any truth?
You're really serious that on national television, I will reveal our strategy about any acquisition of any nature. Are you serious?
Okay, Mr. Jha, I mean, we need to put the questions to you in all seriousness, and we expected an answer, but you have left it pretty much open-ended. So we'll wait by whether or not there is a disclosure that's coming in. But it's been good speaking to you, Mr. Jha. And thanks so much, Amit, as well, for joining in and filling us in with your quick take on how things are shaping up for the ferrous space.
All right, that's steel as a sector, which is the sector of the day. All right, we'll come back to that. I mean, that's a constant discussion which we'll have. Stocks are down, but the market is down as well. And